Anthony Chong. I'll be signing this slow. So that, can you all see me at the back there? Can you see me clearly? Now today I'm going to start my talk about deaf people and our culture. Wait, let me see. Let me ask you the question, who are the deaf people? Look at me, deaf. Should we be seen as a deaf person because of our deafness, or should we be seen as a deaf person because we use a different language to communicate daily? Which should it be? This is a question many hearing people, as well as deaf people, are struggling to answer. Both the hearing and deaf people could not understand how deaf people should live in Malaysia, in our community. I asked many deaf people throughout Malaysia whether they see themselves as having a hearing disability. Most of them answered yes. Why did they answer yes to such a question? Is it because they can't hear sounds? I have a question for myself. How do they know that if the hearing grew up and became deaf, that will shatter him a lot because he couldn't hear. He can't hear at all. Whereas a person was born deaf. Do they feel the same way? How do they feel? How do they know that they do not have a hearing ability? I've met many deaf hearing people. I told them that I'm deaf. They responded by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry for your hearing loss." Initially, I thought it was a normal response that I should have received, and I should be identified as a person with hearing loss. But did I actually lose my hearing ability? I did not come into this world with hearing ability, so how could I experience the loss? Therefore, we do not need anyone to feel sorry or pity us because we are not born with hearing loss. We actually acquired deafness, which led us towards life culture, which would be different from those with normal hearing ability. The acquisition of deafness is good news, and it makes us different from people here. Alright, let me take you to a situation where I hope you will be able to see us in a different light. Imagine yourself in a different town. Let's say this town is named Amber. All the residents of the town are born with deafness, and remember, these people acquired deafness and not hearing loss. Everyone communicates with each other in their local sign language. They do all kinds of jobs They are such as operator, doctors, lawyers, speaker, newscaster, film pilot, film producer, and many more. They are able to have full access in town, that is, they do not have communication barrier with everyone in town when they are doing their errands or doing this government business. They would not miss announcement made in public places, trains or town hall. They are also able to place their order at drive-thrus. They will be able to make emergency calls when they are trapped in lifts. Everything was developed to suit their ability. The only thing that's different is that we do not use speaker, like those that you see up there. Speakers will never occur in our mind because we do not know what they are for. Seeing that they have a normal life like you all today, so do you think the people of Amber Town are deaf people? If you think they are deaf people, how can you be sure that they are deaf when they actually never knew that hearing ability is required to survive in the society? If you think they are deaf persons with disability, how can you be sure that they are persons with disability when they actually have full access to everything in town? So, if these people travel to another town, say Beans, they find out that they could not have full access to information in Beans. They lost their way. They could not communicate efficiently with strangers in Beans. Would you call them persons with disability? Before you answer the question yourself, please put yourself in the same situation. That is, for example, when you fly to Russia where nobody speaks English, you're not able to communicate with them effectively. Would you consider yourself as a person with disability? There's really no real answer for this question. Alright, now let's get back to the reality. Deaf people say that they have a hearing ability simply because they do not have a hearing ability simply because they do not meet society's norms, where hearing and speaking are required to carry out all communications. If we can't hear anything, people would expect us to wear hearing aids so that we can hear. The people would include our parents who would expect us to do anything in order to have hearing ability, wearing hearing aids, go to cochlear implant surgery or speech therapy. As I've just illustrated about people of Amber, if we could have full access to everything in society, then we should be seen as a linguistic and cultural person. Unfortunately, many people were unable to see our linguistic and cultural identity in that way. Hence, people here never bothered to give us full access to everything in society. We will not be able to know announcement, to hear announcement in public places from the radio or in the train. That is why we are called persons with disability, not because of our deafness but because of our inaccessibility to mainstream services. Whenever we asked for a BIM interpreting service, we receive a lot of questions such as, do you really need it? And who's going to pay for the service? If we have a Japanese or a Korean who is not fluent in English, interpreting services will be provided without such questions. So, we are both linguistic and cultural deaf person and persons with disability in this society. Both identities are different, as I have illustrated the differences just now. What exactly is a deaf culture? Not everything we do in our daily life is part of deaf culture. Many assume that communication using pen and paper is our deaf culture. It is not. That's not part of deaf culture. Using paper and pen. If I'm deaf, will I communicate with another person through writing? Many people will assume the deaf culture must only be experienced within the deaf community, not between deaf community and hearing community. Therefore, any kind of communication with hearing people are not part of deaf culture. It's just communication method, just like how you communicate with the Japanese who may know little English. Sending texts and video calls are also not a part of deaf culture. Do you know why? Hearing people do the same thing. Why do we call it our deaf culture? That's only to the deaf. Only the deaf practice it. The deaf culture is a set of learned behaviors of a group of people that share the same four characteristics. They are language, values, rules of behavior, and traditions. BIM is part of a deaf culture because deaf people communicate in the language daily. However, many hearing people always question about the genuineness of sign language. Those who wish to learn BIM will have endless question on how these words, sign words, which have a term as sword, came into being. BIM is a separate language, yet many hearing people and even deaf people could not understand what the separate language means. They often have this weird perspective. For example, they would ask this sword, whether this sword is based on Malay or English word. And they would ask how this word came into existence and so on. I have a question for all of you. Will you actually ask questions when you learn Japanese, Korean, Chinese, or Indonesian? learn any language with an open heart and mind. We should allow ourselves to immerse ourselves in the language learning without so many weird questions. When you are learning a Japanese language, you only need to understand how to pronounce Japanese words. You would never ask questions on how these words, whether these words are meaningful. Unfortunately, it does not happen the same way as in BIM. Let me make this easy for you to understand. When you learn the Japanese word arigato, you will simply accept it. When you learn the BIM word, you would never ask where the word comes from. When you learn the BIM sword, thank you, you will ask why we need to sign it the way it's signed. Let's go back, look at the second characteristic, which is value. We have three important values, which is BIM, socialization, and accessibility. We can only socialize with deaf people who use the same language to satisfy our social interaction need. Every one of us has the same experience in having accessibility in society, so we will need to be able to access TV. We will not be able to access TV without subtitles. We will not be able to have full participation in any seminars without BIM interpreting services. We will not be able to communicate with people through phone except the people who make texting possible. Thirdly, there are certain rules of behavior we learn through our social interaction, such as how to get attention from deaf peers. An example, a tap on the shoulder. If you call us, shout at us, we can't hear you. A tap on the shoulder is good enough. Flick off the light, stomp on the floor, and others which are acceptable by deaf people. The fourth is the tradition which is still in practice today. Each deaf person should have their own unique sign name based on their characteristics. Deaf history and literature are supposed to be our tradition in Malaysia. Unfortunately, not many deaf people were fully equipped. Many deaf people were not fully equipped with our history and literature, as I believe that many deaf people in Malaysia are struggling with an understanding of their own identity due to the tension in society. This is our deaf culture. However, if you have further questions about deaf culture, please make sure you communicate with the right person, as not every deaf person knows and understands deaf culture. If you happen to meet a deaf person and ask a lot of questions, if they answer you about deaf culture or BIM, please do not take everything that he said. Thank you.